Hello and welcome to Press TV's debate. I'm Marzia Hashimi. Thanks so much for being with us. Well, when the Saudis initiated its aerial bombing attack on the Yemeni people, members of the Saudi regime said it would not take more than a couple of months to defeat Yemen. Now, more than 4.5 years later, Saudi Arabia is witnessing more and more retaliatory attacks from the Yemeni people. This time, it's its precious oil field. Well, stay with us as we take a look at the latest in the Yemeni war by the Saudi regime.
Hours after launching a wide-scale operations deep inside Saudi territories, the leader of the Houthi Ansarullah movement delivered a televised speech. Abdulmalik al-Houthi said the attack sent a strong message to Saudi Arabia and UAE not to be a tool in the hands of the US and its allies.
10 drones launched an attack on Aramco oil field that was 1,100 kilometers away from the nearest Saudi-Yemeni border. It sends a message that the war that has been imposed on us has made us stronger.
Abdulmalik al-Houthi urged the Saudi coalition to stop the devastating war on its southern neighbor.
If Saudi Arabia keeps pressing ahead with the war, it'll jeopardize its own security and interests. The Saudis will lose their security even deep inside the kingdom.
Experts say that the Yemeni army is capable of reaching any targets in what they described invading countries.
Our missiles and drones have become able to reach Dubai, Riyadh, and any target within the aggressor's territories. So we call on citizens of invading countries to stay away from vital infrastructure in case they are adamant to continue their war on our country.
The Saudi oil ministry admitted the Saturday's drone attacks and accused Ansarullah fighters of attempting to disrupt the flow of international oil supply. Since the beginning of the Saudi war on Yemen, most of the country's infrastructure has been leveled to the ground, and 16,000 Yemenis, mostly civilians, have been killed by Riyadh's deadly attacks.
Ansarullah leader says the movement has entered the phase of balanced deterrence to force Riyadh end its years-long of war, the war that has left nothing but a trail of death and destruction. محمد عطاء, Press TV, Sana'a.
I'd like to welcome my guest to the program, Saeb Shaath, author and Middle East expert out of Belfast, and Fredrick Peterson, senior U.S. Congressional Defense Advisor out of New York. Thank you both for being with us. Let's start this off with Fredrick in New York. Why, in your perspective, is Yemen so important for Saudi Arabia that it continues its 4.5 years onslaught on the Yemeni people?
Well, we can answer your question without necessarily accepting the reason given that it was a Saudi onslaught. You have a very important country, that being Yemen, occupying critical terrain in the region, which can affect the shipment of critical resources to the prosperity of the region and necessary to the world. And you have a difference, a political difference within the country that is being exploited between the North and the South in order to instigate a war that has taken terrible, terrible toll in human tragedy, over 10,000 dead in a relatively small country, and vast devastation of resources and infrastructure as well as human life. And this is being done not that there are not, which there are, we can both agree, differences within the North and the South as to religious differences and affiliations that they would choose to have with external powers, shall we say, that being Saudi and Iran, actually, primarily. And what we have is exploitation of these differences from the outside in order to achieve not the interests of the people who are fighting and the people who are dying and the civilians who are being slaughtered within Yemen, but in order to achieve the purposes international, regional, and national of the competitors within the region, shall we say.
All right.
This
well,
is,
let me get
this
Saeb
is
in
a
on
very,
this
very sad
conversation. Stay with
state
me,
of
Fredrick.
affairs.
Stay with
it
me,
is
Fredrick. Let me get Saeb in on this conversation. Saeb, your take on this, that why are we seeing Saudi Arabia willing to pay so much money and so much even its reputation for this war against Yemen?
Very good the way you termed it the last second. Yes, Saudi Arabia paid with the Emiratis nearly $1 trillion in this war. And the smoke screen for this war was reinstalling Hadi. Under this kind of a slogan, they spent $1 trillion to reinstall Hadi and waged all of these wars, which will tell us nobody in economical sense, in a strategical sense, no Yemeni would believe that. You will spend $1 trillion and destroy the country just to install Hadi. The whole thing was, from the beginning, to dominate Yemen and to destroy Yemen as well for the interest of the United States of America, to controlling the waterways and the strategic position of Yemen. Yemen is the strategic heart of Arabia, of the international kind of energy market in there. Yesterday's attack on the heart of Aramco with a squadron of 10 drones, without the la crème of the crème or the state-of-art American technology detect them when they crossed from Yemen to the Sheba field around 1,200 kilometers without being detected by radars, the THAAD missiles, the best American technology can offer, and the Patriot as well. So this can tell us failure of intelligence, failure of military machines and equipment in there, and they are milking Saudi Arabia with a lot of money to buy these technologies. But the whole thing wasn't a war for the Saudis. The whole thing, and this is betraying for us, it's a war for the American dominance in the region, to control the flow of oil, to control security of Israel in the region.
What about that, Fredrick, what our guest in Belfast said? The whole thing is actually a war for the Americans and to help Israel and to control the flow of oil in the region. Your take on those comments?
And yet, the United States certainly, I mean, flying in the face of that assertion, which is utterly incorrect, is that the United States, Yemen did not, it was a civil war. It is being fostered from external powers. The United States side did not
wait 1 minute, Fredrick. A civil war when Saudi Arabia, a foreign entity, is bombing the Yemeni people? Is that how you the terminology you use for a civil war?
Well, they are assisting the Yemeni government as the duly recognized and instituted Yemeni government to protect itself against rebel forces which are heavily supported with arms, with personnel, and with guidance from external powers. So this is not something that is just spontaneous from within. It is something that is coming, that it's a little prop being used to put on the stage as the larger powers play their interests out in the lives of
internal, you said
people.
It's nothing coming from internal, then you wouldn't call that a civil war. Your take, Saeb, on what Fredrick just said.
I want to take my friends back to the 60s. Again, I said that in another program, but in 1962, not 2019, the Israelis, the British, the United States of America, CIA, were active in Yemen. in trying to destroy the revolutionary who were fighting to gain independence. Why they would be active from that time? Why Israel will be involved at the side of Saudi Arabia from 1962? It's all about controlling the waterways and denying those people to become independent. Since this region, this area, Yemen, as a country, as a state, is vital for the controlling of the waterways. The British Empire used to run its empire from Australia to India from Eden airport. So this is how important it is. In 1967, Nasser blocked Tehran's waterways in front of shipping of oil from Shah of Iran to Israel. The United States of America launched a war in the name of Israel under even the flag of Israel, devastated Egypt and Syria. So that's vital, this region is. And they don't want to see a revolutionary movement, independent country, refuses the United States of America hegemony over them and controlling their own resources and want to develop, and they don't want to listen to the American orders to use their country as a launch pad of wars against their neighbors, be it Iran, be it Ethiopia, be it any country. So this is how vital it is. And the Saudis being ordered to finance this war against the Yemeni, because the Yemenis, before the war on Yemen, before this war, which you want to call it a civil war yourself, started, the Yemenis agreed. The four major players in Yemen, the Houthis, Hizb al-Islah, the Congress, even the Southern Movement, agreed in sharing power. This wasn't pleasant news for the Americans and the Saudis, the Yemenis, to reconcile their differences. So the war started. Okay. When they sat on the table, the war started.
All right. Well, Fredrick, now, when Saudi Arabia is equipped with the latest weapons and spending billions of dollars for warplanes and equipment purchases from the U.S. and the U.K., why can't it defeat a country which is so much poorer and less equipped?
Well, yes, Saudi is using advanced weapons and spending a lot of money. And your other guest and I quite well agree on the point that Yemen, and I made the point in my initial statement, that Yemen sits on critical terrain. That's what makes it important, not only to Saudi, because their oil is virtually bottled up, were it not able to freely flow past Yemen. Which makes this civil war, this war of marionettes acting out on both sides, I will readily admit, North and South, vitally important. But to call it somehow, it is a civil war. It is a civil war against an established government which allowed the free flow of resources through the area. And the attempt to change that equation, where one side is now possibly realigning itself with forces that would restrict for other purposes the free flow of oil or threaten it in order to achieve other purposes.
Well,
that's
Fredrick,
what we're dealing with here.
What proof do you have, Fredrick? What proof do you have? So when we talk about the other side, we're talking about, for example, Ansar Allah. And just yesterday, actually, the head of Ansar Allah, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, he said that actually if the Saudis wanted to live in peace and have a peaceful existence and coexistence with the Yemeni people, then they should stop attacking the Yemeni people and there would be no problem. So why are you saying that, for example, if Ansar Allah and the Yemeni people actually came to power in its own country, that the flow of oil would be cut off? What proof do you have?
Well, I'll simply say that the North would have to agree with this. What we're talking about is a rebel entity, internationally recognized as that, against a duly instituted government, and we may even agree that there have been excesses and there have been faults with the duly instituted government.
And who's the head of that duly instituted government? Who's head of that duly instituted government, Fredrick? At this point in time, who's head of the duly instituted government who the alleged leader has been living in Saudi Arabia, and actually now even to return to Aden would actually have to get permission from the United Arab Emirates now to even enter the country. Saeb, your take on all of this? I mean, I
want to explain to Fredrick one point, which is, I hope he'll allow me. The United Arab Emirates, okay, when it's even declared this big lie, it's withdrawing out of the south of Yemen, is working hard to split the north from the south, not because of religious or, as you said, because they want to destroy the south and they want to control the port of Aden, which will never be able to compete with the Emiratis ports of Dubai or Abu Dhabi. And the other thing, it's used a religious political force which is hated by some elements in the south of Yemen, Hizb al-Islah, the Islah party, which they consider a Muslim brotherhood, okay, and they want to evict, and they evicted it from the south, so they can initiate kind of a struggle against these forces which allied itself with the Saudis and Emiratis against the north. So the Saudis themselves, they depend on this Al-Islah party in the north of Yemen to have men to fight against Al-Houthi revolutionary committees and the Yemeni army to try to secure their own borders, which they kept it open because they are in a state of war with these other forces. So this dilemma the Saudis find themselves in and the Emiratis find themselves in, you want to call it a civil war. This is a war between Saudi Arabia and Emiratis on deciding their own interests within one war both sides are waging in the name of the United States of America and the Yemeni people. This is the picture of what's going on in Yemen.
All right, well, Fredrick, now the Houthis sent 10 drones and bombed Aramco's refinery, the main Saudi oil facility. Your take on this, and also the ability of this group to be able to do that, and the importance of being able to do that strategically?
Well, to be able to do that means that outside support was necessary in order for that to occur. And
why do you say that?
What we really have is, and I think, why do I say that outside support would be necessary?
Yes.
What?
The Yemenis are saying these are homegrown drones that they are designing, and obviously there has been a blockade around Yemen for years now.
Fredrick, while the United States of America itself declared it's the force behind the intelligence it's supplying for the Saudis air jets when they attack in Yemen. It's given us the coordinates. The United States of America declared it's maintaining the siege and the blockade in behalf of the Saudis in Yemen. Who is interfering in here? Outside forces.
Fredrick, go ahead.
Well, we can agree. We can agree that Yemen is strategically vital and important. I believe we can agree on that. We can also agree, I believe, that there is one government that is internationally recognized in Yemen. How that government is supported, who they're allied with, becomes complicating factors and points of divergence, perhaps. But the fact remains that the government there, allied with the Saudis as they may be, and vitally, and the third point that I want to make is that we both should be able to agree that these straits, this strategic terrain, is vitally important to Saudi in order to be able to export their product to the world, making it vitally important to the world.
Let me just jump in here. Saeb, your take on this. Fredrick, you didn't answer my question about the importance of them being able to initiate these retaliatory attacks. Saeb, I want your take on that. And also, because yesterday in the speech, the head of the Ansarullah basically said that they were going to increase the attacks if the Saudis did not stop attacking the Yemeni people. I want to talk about, one, their ability to do so, and it seems their confidence in being able to do it.
That's why they called this operation of yesterday the deterrent balance 1, which means there is 2 coming and there is a 3 coming. And they were warning the Saudis from last year and the year before. They told them there is going to be development and high-tech used in this battle against them. Indigenous Yemeni developed Yemen's and rockets and drones. The other point I want to say to Fredrick, when he said about this legitimate government he's talking about, and the head of it, Hadi, who is more than even 90% of the Yemenis reject him. When he sits in Saudi Arabia, he gets orders. He doesn't even allow to speak on behalf of his own, what's supposed to be government in the Palace of Mashik in Aden. When he goes to Aden, he wants a permission from the Emirati forces. If his 2 allies who are fighting in his name, as they say, screen smoke in Hadi's name, he asked permission from them to what to say or when to go to Aden. What are you talking about in here? It's a country occupied by United Arab Emirates and the Saudi Arabia, carrying the policies of the United States of America in there to destroy this country. But the Houthis and the Yemeni army, who stood for 4.5 years against Saudi Western-backed war of aggression in Yemen, and stopped them, pushed them in a stalemate position, deny them from achieving their goals of looting Yemen and of its national resources.
All right, Saeb, I hate to interrupt you, but we are out of time. I appreciate you being with us. Saeb Shaath, author, Middle East expert out of Belfast, and Fredrick Peterson, senior U.S. Congressional Defense Advisor out of New York. And as always, viewers, we appreciate you being with us on another debate right here at Press TV. I'm Marzieh Hashemi. See you next time.